Good afternoon and happy Friday. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm your host, Leticia, Healing with Leticia podcast, Reflections from a Therapist. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. Good to have you back, and I appreciate you still following my podcast. I mean, it is a bit still new. I think this is episode 9. And so if you're still listening, thank you. I appreciate it. Honestly, there are no expectations with this podcast. Like I said originally, if just one person wants to listen to this and they get something out of it, that's honestly good enough for me. So if you are a returning listener, I really do value you and appreciate you. And I hope that you do feel that you are getting something out of this. So I'm not sure if you can hear too much in the background. I'm actually recording outside today. I usually record indoors, but I just felt guided to sit outside, more so like in nature, having some vitamin D. Although I am sitting next to hummingbird feeders, so if you hear too much background noise, I hope it's not too distracting during this episode. They are kind of aggressive. I don't know why. Very territorial hummingbirds. I never really knew that until I got to be around them more. But anyhow, okay, well, I mean, I have not recorded in some weeks now. My intention was to record, I believe it was it last Friday? I think it was last Friday. But I got back from my trip. I was gone for a week, visiting some family, and I just jumped right back into work, and that was pretty busy. So I just decided to wait until it felt like the right time, and today just felt like the right time. So I'm trying to listen to my guidance system, and it just felt like today was one of those days. So for today's episode, so like I said, it's episode number 9. Originally I was going to record about Reiki, and I don't know why it's taking me a little while to share that. I'm thinking that it's because I want it to be too structured in some type of way, probably because I'm imagining there needs to be a bullet point to be able to really introduce the history of Reiki and, you know, who invented it and all of that. And so I do think I need a little bit more time to kind of summarize that and to create it in a way where it just feels that it feels good. And right now I don't feel that way. So I've been sitting out here for a little while, just kind of pondering what's on my mind, like what is something that I think I can just, talk about without having to really go into like feeling so structured about it. And I think that today what's been on my mind a lot is forgiveness. So forgiveness has been a lot on my mind, and for many reasons, which I'm not really sure if I'll totally go into those reasons right now. Maybe I will. If not in this episode, maybe in another one, because I do think that forgiveness is, like I said, very complex, right? Like, it sounds easier said than done. And each person decides when they feel that they're ready to let something go. So you can't force someone to feel like they're ready to forgive, whether it be themselves or someone else. It's just sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it's less time for a situation, a person. It could be more related to family. Sometimes, at least for me, that's definitely harder to navigate and to be able to, just to process and to really be able to understand why someone does the way that they do something, especially if it hurts you. It becomes more personal when it's someone closest to you. So I'm sure someone out there might probably feel the same way. But generally, when it comes to myself, and this is like me speaking for myself, I don't really consider myself to be a resentful person who likes to hold on to too much. I mean, there are things that I can probably think back about because they're unresolved. So that's like where my brain becomes tricky and it starts to ruminate about how something doesn't feel like it's concluded, like it's not peaceful. It could be because maybe the other person hasn't apologized, or it could be that that person's not changing. And, I'm sure we've all heard someone apologize before and then their actions don't match that. So that makes it that much harder to actually trust that you can see these changes come about with time, and really trust someone that they're really apologetic, that they really are sorry for their actions or their words, or, whatever it was that they did to hurt you. And I know that with me, if I had to be, completely honest, I don't tend to be too forgiving to people that I don't think are sorry for their actions, especially if it's someone that continues to behave a particular way and they don't really care to change, or they don't see that their behavior is a problem, and then they just want you to kind of just dismiss what they've done to you, which I don't think is okay. So, I mean, I don't know if someone relates to that or has someone in their life that, they also feel the same way about, but I definitely have some people in my life that I find really difficult to, really forgive in these types of ways, because they don't think that there's a problem when they hurt someone's feelings, or that their issues are not being projected onto other people, and, like there is no action strategy, or, nothing's being changed, basically. So in my opinion, that just doesn't feel good. And so that also feels unresolved. And then we get into the territory of, okay, well, if that person's not going to give you that peace, or if they're not going to change, then what do you do? Because in reality, we don't have control over people and their behavior and what they choose to acknowledge or not. But we definitely always go back to boundaries, which, is another episode in itself. And, we can have our own boundaries with ourselves to keep ourselves protected from people like that. And it becomes even trickier when it's someone very close to you, like blood related, people in your life, family, obviously. And, I hear this a lot, obviously, in therapy with my clients. Some people don't think that they want to forgive, and I never push my agenda on a person to say, hey, you probably should forgive, right? Like, that's the healthiest thing to do, because, even though there is a lot of science out there to prove that, when we hold on to negative emotions and thoughts and things like that, it does affect our health and even our mental health. But I can also understand when someone is just not ready to forgive. They're just not there yet. They may still be harboring over something. And this is where, we have to let people also take their time to get to a point where they feel like they're done with that thing. Even if it's not about forgiveness, sometimes it could be something else in a person's lives that we feel like they should be letting go of, or they need to stop doing. And that person is just not ready to release that thing, or maybe they're not ready being destructive. They're not done being destructive and ready to let go of that behavior or that addiction, or whatever it is. So, I mean, I think this is coming up for me because I have been thinking a lot about wanting to practice being more compassionate towards people, and I think that it's hard to be that way when you were not taught to be that way. When you're raised to be grudgeful, to hold on to things, to use things against people. And if you were raised like this, I mean, I am so interested in hearing your story. I do believe, and I don't know why I don't mention this in my other episodes, or maybe I did in one, but, I'm definitely open to hearing other people's stories if you feel comfortable with sharing. I believe there's an option somewhere underneath the episode where you can share a comment, or, just something that you would like to add to the episode. So I'm definitely open to hearing your experience if you feel this way, or if you relate to any of what I'm talking about today. It's also good to relate to people and to feel like you're not alone. And that's definitely one of my motivators with having this podcast, is to help people out there to not feel alone when they're navigating a lot of these difficult emotions and experiences. And just because I'm a therapist, that doesn't mean that I'm an exception to the rule. I struggle with a lot too. I have to constantly redirect my mind and my thoughts and my feelings. And, sometimes we can get tempted and even triggered to want to return to old, unhealthy patterns and behaviors. And these are the moments that I believe prove that we are growing and healing, because we're able to at least identify what it is that we would have maybe impulsively have reacted, instead of like thinking about it and taking a step back and saying, wait a minute, like, I know this is not healthy. So even though I wish I could say this, or I would like to do that, I'm not going to do that. So I think that, maybe someone out there needs to hear that also, right? Like, there are times where we might be triggered, and, even if you do give in sometimes, I mean, I'm guilty of this. There are times where family can trigger me, and then I say some things, and then I have to pull back and say, wait a minute, like, I'm getting sucked in again. Like, this is not good. Like, this is not what I want to be like. So, I think that, that's just an example. But I think that there are times where, we have to get to the point where maybe whatever it is that we're holding on to can also feel just really painful, to keep holding on to. It can feel heavy. And even if that person is not in your life, there are different methods to be able to release that person with peace, and to just wish them the best, and just know that, we can't change people and their behaviors, and that's just part of life, like knowing what you do have control of and then what you don't is a really big lesson in life, to have more peace, and to just know that you only have control over yourself and what you allow in, and then also, what you don't allow yourself to be around, especially if it's a situation or a person or something that is bringing out an old version of yourself that you don't feel good about. Then that's something to think about, whether I should be allowing myself to be around these situations, because I don't like the way that I'm feeling or what it's bringing out of me. And I definitely relate to anyone out there that feels like, obviously family does this the most. I definitely do relate to this. So I guess maybe that's just what's been on my mind today, just like wanting to practice forgiveness. And it's not always with the intention of trying to make it work with someone, right? Like, I don't want to always just forgive someone just to keep them in my life. It's more so for my own peace of mind, my own mental health, and to be able to just not feel so heavy with some negative emotions, some negative memories. And I think that sometimes we think that we're holding someone more accountable by holding on to that resentment and that anger, because we don't think that that person deserves to be forgiven, or that if we do forgive that person, then that makes their behavior okay. And I definitely don't agree to that at all. And I hope that other people out there know that when you are forgiving someone, that doesn't dismiss their behavior or the fact that they hurt you. It just means that you no longer want to let it weigh heavy on you. Like, you no longer want to be stuck on that person or about that situation. But I also trust that each person arrives to this place on their own whenever they feel like they're ready to. And I think that it's just up to each person to decide when that time is. And I don't think anyone should tell a person when they need to do something or get rid of something or, start something or leave something, because each person's healing journey looks differently. And we all arrive to our place of healing at different times. And this is also a reminder to myself too, because I think it's harder when it comes to my personal life, obviously, versus like clients. And it's when you're more emotionally connected and invested in, people that are close to you, or if you do see that they're hurting, or you see that they're making decisions for themselves that are going to lead them down a destructive path, sometimes we feel like we need to jump in and save people. And I also have learned the hard way that we're not here to save people. We can't provide shortcuts to everyone, so they don't hurt themselves. Sometimes people do actually need to go down these destructive roads to be able to learn something about themselves, and also to even just learn to trust themselves, to be able to be more self-sufficient in themselves, and to know that they can handle distress, that they can heal, that they will be okay again. And so I think that all of this is connected with forgiveness. And I think the last thing that I would like to say about this, and this is just also, I think sometimes when I process stuff out loud, I also need to hear it for myself. So I think that this is probably why it's also healthy to talk about some things at times that do affect me. It's a reminder that when people do things to you, it's rarely ever about you. It's mostly about themselves. It's mostly about how they feel about themselves. It's mostly about where they're at with their healing journey. It's mostly about what they haven't healed yet. And sometimes people are running on autopilot without even realizing that they're wounded, that they have, unhealed wounds from their past, like traumas and different things, right? Like if you are not aware of these things and you're just kind of running through life on autopilot, then you are bleeding on other people that have nothing to do with what you've been through. And, I don't believe that that's fair, obviously, to project stuff onto other people. So I think that it's just a reminder, it might make it a little bit easier to sometimes heal from something when you can kind of self-reflect about the fact that this person probably oh my gosh, I'm losing my train of thought here. If a person does something to you, they're probably doing this to someone else. You might want to check that out, right? Like if this person is irrational, or if they're reactive, or if they're mean, or if they cheat, or whatever it is, right? Do they also do this with probably other people in their life? Because most of the time there's a theme, and it's rarely ever just one person that they're doing this behavior with. So that helps to also better understand that someone's behavior isn't really personally towards you. And I think lots of times when we get hurt, we feel like it's a very personal attack, because it feels very personal, obviously, if you're hurting, right? I mean, it feels that way in the moment. But later, when you start to feel a little bit better about it, and you have some time to maybe get away from the situation or the person, you start to understand that, this person already had a lot of maybe pre-existing issues from the past, or, just something that they have been dealing with that they're needing to sort through. And sometimes it's best to get away from that for a while, to be able to give someone space to be able to navigate that on their own, rather than staying too close to the fire and then also burning with them. And that's actually not really helping a person anyways. So I don't know, all of that connects somehow, and I do hope that this message reaches the person that needs to hear it, even if it's just one person. And I think that that's it for today. I don't want this to be too long. I know that we're all busy people and we have things to do, but I'm glad to be connecting with you again. And I do hope to be able to keep this up every 2 weeks at the very least, which is my goal. But I also want to not be too rigid, where if I'm feeling like it's not feeling like the right day or the right time, or, something's going on, I don't want to force anything. So what I can say is that even if I don't come back in 2 weeks, I will be back. And I'll come back knowing that it's the right time. But I know that I'll be back. So for anybody that is, kind of waiting for any of these episodes to be posted, just know that if I don't post in exactly 2 weeks, it doesn't mean that I'm not coming back. It just means that maybe I just needed a little bit of time to kind of take a step back and think about what I want to say next. And today felt like the right time. And this is why this feels like more organic and unplanned. And this is why maybe it sounds a little bit all over the place. But again, this is me being raw. This is me being real. This is me being authentic and vulnerable. And I hope that someone out there resonates with this. So I hope that you all have a great rest of your week. I hope that you're having a great Friday. It's really hot, and supposedly there's a hurricane coming. That's not funny, but it's also like, what happened? Like, what's happening around here in California? Ay, ay, ay. All right. Well, I think I always end my episodes with what Dr. Pat Allen usually says in her books and in her radio show. And I'm not sure if anybody has had a chance to read any of her books, but I love all of her work. And she usually ends most everything with, we all need something to do, something to look forward to, and we all need someone to love. So I hope that you all have all of those three. And if you don't, I do hope that you find time to figure that out for yourself, so that way you can feel fulfilled and have peace. So take care. I hope you all are doing well, and I will catch you in my next episode. Have a great rest of your week. Until next time. Bye.